Good afternoon, students. I've had some questions come up in class about Milestone 9, and since not everybody has been coming to class, I thought I'd put together a quick recording just covering those questions so that everybody's on the same page as we move forward. So first of all, on Milestone 9, we are starting a new series. We're going to be working primarily with web development and building out a website to go with our gyroscope restaurants. So a bit of a shift and a kind of a chance to start over with a new project. If you find yourself really struggling with WPF, this will be a different direction. So one of the first things you need to do is create an ASP.NET Core web project named website using the Razor Pages option. We also do this in the exercise. One of the exercises, I believe we actually create an original website, or we might clone it. But when you do that, there are a couple things that a lot of people have been running into. You need to make sure that you have the .NET Web Development Workflow installed. And how you do that, you come into Tools, get Tools and Features, and that will open the Visual Studio Installer, and it will show you all the workflows that you can add, as well as the individual components you can install, basically all the different things you can add with Visual Studio. And this is the one that you need, ASP.NET and Web Development. If it is not checked, you must check it, click the Modify, let it install. It will take a while to do. But if you don't have that, then the templates won't work, and you won't be able to actually build your project the way that you want to. So once you've done that, when you create a new project, go ahead and just do a new project. This will look a little bit different than some of the earlier videos because we were using an earlier version of ASP.NET at that point, but you're going to find ASP.NET Core Web App and call it website, and you'll be doing this in the same solution that we are using. And go ahead and use .NET 5.0 as your target framework. That way it'll work smoothly with the existing libraries that you have. And that's really the process of creating that. So it's very straightforward. It's just like when we created other projects. And then once that's created, because you are going to be using the data library, you need to make sure that you add it to the dependencies. So add a project reference. And again, this would be in the same solution as your existing point of sale and data projects. And then you're basically just going to be updating a bunch of pages and creating a static menu class in your data project to serve the contents of the menu so that those can be displayed on the web page. And that's really kind of the core of it. You're going to have a privacy page, an about page. You're going to modify the layout. The layout is used for every page in Visual Studio in the ASP.NET project. So if we look in here at shared, here's the layout. So every page actually gets rendered with this layout. And so you can see, for example, here's the nav bar and all the elements of the nav bar. You're going to be making some tweaks there. This render body call is what actually renders the content of the page, so it gets injected at that point. One of the other things you may run into, which a lot of people have, notice that this style sheet links to your site CSS, or if you add other style sheets, the same thing. When you compile and build and run, you may find that your CSS is not appearing in the browser. And the reason is the browser caches the old version of this site.css, and therefore it's showing you the old version. So you have to do a hard refresh, which is like Control Shift F5, and it depends on which browser you're using as to what exact key combo it is. Or the other thing you can do is notice that if we come down here to the site.js, we have this ASP append version equal true. What that little helper tag does is it tells .NET ASP that when it renders this page to slap on a version number onto the site.js file. So instead of being site.js, it's site. Some random string of numbers.js, and that changes when you make changes to the file. You can do the same thing to the style sheet. So ASP append version true, set it equal to true, and that will make sure that you always reload the CSS file when you make changes, and therefore your CSS rules will show up. So that's a second tripping point that a lot of people have been running into. The static menu class is just basically a static class with static properties that return IEnumerables. That's any collection that implements the IEnumerable interface of IOrder items. Alternately, if you want to make this an IEnumerable of entrees for the entree and sides for the side and drinks for the drink, that's okay. You can tweak that a little bit there. The index page, this is the really interesting one. We want you to display all of the entrees, all of the sides, all of the drinks that are offered. And the wording has been tripping up some people on when I tell you to list those and what they should include, but basically it boils down to one of each type of item, and then if that item has multiple sizes, one of each item at each of those sizes. So for the sides, you would have the small, medium, and large of each side, and for the drinks and anything with flavors, if it has multiple flavors, you need to have one of each flavor. Now you have some freedom in how you arrange this. You can either have one of each item, or you can do some kind of more intelligent shuffling where you maybe have the side, and then you have the different sizes of the side in a table or something like that you're showing the information for. So you can tweak this to make it look however you want. But when you do that, you need to be aware and be cognizant that we want these tied back to this menu class. We want to pull the values, so don't hard code them. Don't just type in straight up HTML that's not pulling from the menu class, because if we change the price in the menu class, if we change, or for the individual item in its base class, if we change the calories for that item, that needs to show up in the menu as well without having to go in and change the menu. So you must use those iMenu item classes, or iMenu items. I have them listed here as iOrder items, but they're iMenu items. Those need to reflect that. Other things, that's the big chunk of it, is go ahead and do that. I've also had questions on how do I actually do UML for these classes. Well, the answer is you go and look, and you have for each CS.html, you have a CS file. This is a class, and notice it extends from page model, so you would do the index model class in your class diagram, and you would say that that's extending from page model, which is coming from ASP.ASP.net core MVC Razor Pages. So that's the namespace, and that's what you would want to use for that. The CS.html file, this template, is not a class. It's not a partial class like it was in some of our others. And notice it's not a C# file. It's not an object. So there's no reason to put it in an object diagram. That said, if you really, really want to put it in, what you can do is you can just put a box with the name of the file, so index.cshtml, with no methods, no properties, no divisions in the box, just a flat box and a single line connecting it. So if you really want to see those show up in your UML, you can do that, but that is not required because this is not a class. All right, I think that wraps it up. Some other comments. I give you examples, but notice these examples are for a flying saucer restaurant. This is what we did last spring, so you're going to tweak these to be your own thing based on the gyroscope. You're not required to have images, but you can add images if you want, and it makes your site look a lot better if you do. Along with that, we are going to be doing a contest, so whoever out of the class has the best design will give you a gift certificate to Redina's at the end of the semester. So if you this is a chance to really stretch yourself and try to make something very interesting. Along with that, we're not going to dictate a lot of how this should look. So this is really up to you in terms of how you want to lay it out. And you have to match the requirements that we've kind of laid out here, but there's a lot of wiggle room here where you can make a very interesting web page. So go ahead and take a little bit of time to work on this. The other thing I will say, and I've been saying this all semester, but I'll keep repeating it because it bears repeating, start on these projects early. Start on your exercises early. If you have questions, the best place to ask those is in class. And if you haven't worked on anything before class starts, you're not going to be able to get that help as easily as you could if you were actually coming to class, had your questions in hand, had took advantage of the fact that I and the TAs are there and can help you at that moment. So my advice, again, as always, start these projects early. As soon as you have the opportunity to get started on them, if you finish them early, woohoo, you got the rest of the week to do other things. But get it done early. Don't put it off until the weekend, which seems to be a very common trend, because I and the TAs are not as available on the weekends, and that's just going to be the way of the world. You need to learn how to start your CS projects early and really try to get them done early as well. And that gives you time for when you run into those weird things where Visual Studio's not behaving, or you've got some error that you just have no idea what it is. That makes sure that you have plenty of time to talk with people and get that sorted out before the due date comes due. Time management is one of those things that is an important learning thing to pick up in college. It's not something we explicitly teach, but it's definitely something we implicitly teach, that the students who actually learn how to do good time management have easier and more enjoyable college lives, and those who don't have worse grades and a worse time. So please do try to get started on these earlier. And that is everything I have for you. So good luck with these exercises and the milestone, and I'll see you next week in